If you're a content creator working as a freelancer on commission or using contract-based work when you're engaged with clients, hires, engagers, chances are really high you will have come across the phrase or the expression work for hire. You may also be wondering what that means, where it comes from, and whether it applies to you. In this video, I'm covering the basics of the doctrine of work for hire. Work for hire is a concept of copyright law and applies first of and essentially to copyright content or copyright protected content. And the doctrine of work for hire comes from United States law. And so it means that different countries may provide different rules and do not necessarily include the work for hire doctrine. What the doctrine means is that when you're hired by a client, regardless of their size, structure, or the context of the project, that the copyright and other intellectual property rights you generate during this contract or for the purpose of that particular project will flow to the hirer, the person who engaged you, or the organization. And this provides that the rights will be automatically transferred and first owned by your engager, your client, your hirer. In practice, you can agree to different terms. It is only a default rule that the work for hire doctrine will apply. You can agree to a different arrangement with your client if it works best for you or for the purpose of the project. This would take the form of a new licensing agreement or new assignments of rights that you will tailor to the needs and specifics of your project. A common misconception about the work for hire doctrine is that you find it in every country and it applies to you regardless of where you're at or regardless of the location of the contract, location of the work, or location of the artist. That's not true. Other countries have similar provisions, but they may also significantly differ from the basics or the baseline of the work for hire as we know it in the US. So for example, in the UK, you have equivalent provisions that are only applicable in a context of employment. If you're an employee hired on a contract of employment by an employer, and I insist on the employment context, as you can see, then yes, when you create new copyright protected materials in the context of employment as an employee, then the first owner of the copyrights in the works is your employer. However, this provision, which is kind of an equivalent to the US work for hire doctrine, is limited to employment contracts. It will not apply to freelance-based workers, self-employed professionals, and commission-based work. What would apply then is whatever you've agreed by contract to do, and that can be an assignment if that works, or a license. I always advise freelance artists to work on the premise of a licensing agreement rather than an assignment of their rights or a buyout, because this way they can protect and future-proof their interest better by retaining more control over their content. And there's nothing an assignment does that a license well written and well tailored to a project cannot do as well. So there really is no need to hand over more rights than the client needs. And you may need to do a little bit of education on that, but it's nothing you can't handle. You're doing much harder things every day in the context of your creative practice or your business. So don't worry about that. Keep on watching those videos and come to me if you have questions about it, but do not let that deter you from asking for a license rather than an assignment. But back to our work for hire doctrine. I hope you now understand that it is a concept of copyright law that is originating and applicable in the US, that other countries may have similar provisions, but not all of them do, and that you always have the option to agree to different terms. Even in the US, you can agree to a different agreement by negotiating it with your client. In the UK, your starting point would be that as a freelance artist or content creator, you are the first owner of the right, and you need an agreement that specifies otherwise in order for the rights to flow to the clients through an assignment or a license. So that's it. That's the work for hire doctrine in a nutshell for you. I hope that was helpful. If you want more of that type of content, or if you have any questions and you'd like me to cover in a video or a social media post, get in touch, comment below, or get in touch with me directly. You can find all of my details and contact information and ways to get in touch with me through my website, mathildepavis.com. Signing up to my mailing list is the best way to keep in touch and to keep up to date with the resources I put out and the content I publish every week to support artists, creative professionals, tech developers to know their rights, use their rights, and monetize their rights.